The future is one of the most terrifying elements when you are considering One Punch Man. In this video, we're going to be covering what we know about season 3, and we're going to look at the future of the series in general through the webcomic, manga, and then finally the anime. One Punch Man came to this world as a dazzling, shining light, but now that light is dimmed, and much like Death of a Star, we don't get to see its collapse until years after it happens. The new director, Shinpei Nagi, is taking over as director for One Punch Man Season 3. He replaces Shikara Sakurai and marks the third director the anime has had across 8 seasons. Nagi keeps a relatively low profile, much like the original author, One. Nagi only revealed himself to the world in early September 2025, 1 month before the anime is due to start airing. And up until this point, we've known nothing about the anime's production, and the past made it clear that the role of director can make or break an anime. Season 1 and 2 of this very anime make that clear as day. In that very relevant example, Shingo Natsumi, acclaimed, action-minded director, also known for Space Dandy, my favorite anime. But in terms of One Punch Man, he's known for rallying that elite team of freelancers and applying them around a clear vision for the anime, with a focus on clear visuals and production. Shikara Sakurai, on the other hand, he's a longtime animator and episode director who stepped up to the series director when the show moved onto a different studio and Natsume left. He actually worked notably on Naruto, but under his direction, he dropped many department heads when it came to season 2 of the anime. This alone showed that there was a lot of friction within the production of season 2, and that alone is a terrible sign, and the result was what we got. Season 1 was built like a showcase. Natsume leveraged his deep freelancer network to pack episodes with elite animators that pushed hand-drawn, kinetic cuts, old timing, comedy, and cinematic compositions to fights so that they felt like set pieces. This was only possible because of his connections and his personal passion for the project. And someone who didn't have that same passion and network was Sakurai. His TV style workflow, meaning fast and cheap workflow, it leaned more to in-house resources rather than the multi-talented network that Natsume had built for season 2. But why? Well, it was easier due to the production being in-house. It had safer staging and CG processing to support the action and supposedly keeping characters' art consistent in theory, but yielding flatter, less event-like battles and talkier, more conversational visuals. Season 2 prioritized production stability and continuity, but these two approaches are very understandable and logical even. But when expectations were set so high, this safe approach that they took really showed in the long term. Moving back to our new director for season 3 though, fans have been worried about season 3's animation since season 2's reception. And because JC Staff is again producing season 3, when the director revealed finally dropped alongside October's air date and a brief teaser, skepticism jumped both over the teaser and a deeper look into Nagi's resume. So what exactly did he post? Over September 3rd and 4th, he introduced himself on Twitter, apologizing for staying anonymous. The quote, "Hello everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Shinpei Nagi, the director for One Punch Man Season 3. I completely understand everyone's reaction. Please calm down and hear me out. The team is giving it our all on site. I can't discuss production details, but I'm open to answering what I can within limits." He clarified that he's been a freelancer from the start and not a full-time JC staffer, per this thread, only now being a full-time employee for the project, brought on because of this new hybrid workflow. The idea is that he is bridging 3D and 2D to squeeze out even one more second from every schedule. Essentially, backgrounds would be previs and modeled in 3D, over which they would add a 2D layer composition. He says he's been refining this approach for years. He clarifies that he's been a freelancer from the start and not a full-time employee of JC Staff, per this thread, only now becoming a full-time employee of JC Staff, being brought on because of his new hybrid workflow. So what do we think of this? Personally, I think this sounds amazing. The 3D assets from season 2 are not the reason that anime failed. They were actually overall quite good. So the fact that they planned on using it on backgrounds is good, and it's an amazing idea, and we have seen success with these methods before. When it comes to tone and setting, there is few that hit any more than the production team responsible for Apothecary Diaries. OLM and Toho Animation Studios used 3D layouts as assets, not shortcuts. It gave 100% accuracy when it came into locking scale, lenses, and light, so that 2D line work stays elegant, while the palace and greater world feel strictly designed. It's stylization with architectural accuracy. This can be seen in their workflow. The world would be built in 3D and then after painted in 2D. The team produced over 100 background models for the inner palace, 95 delivered by OLM Digital for season 1 alone. Then they would paint over and relight them for the final shots. This resulted in shots that had ornate decor and stayed internally consistent to a degree of 100%, while the 2D art direction and style remained front and center. That being said, this works great for a grounded show like Apothecary Diaries. And One Punch Man can take a lot of notes from this, in terms of environmental geometry and architecture, but One Punch Man is an action show. These methods can't be used to help with action animation and workflows. It's a good thing I've brought another example then, huh? Haikyuu The Dumpster Battle. Production IG asked CG Studio Gemba to build the match in a 3D layout first. We're talking 700 to 800 cuts planned in 3D. Players positioned, rotation, ball paths, and the camera rides through the court. Only after those shots were locked in did background painting and 2D character animation roll in. That's why rallies feel coherent, even when the camera is flying through. Roughly 2 months to lay this out. So Gemba built custom tools inside 3D Max to move faster. They blocked players with biped and then dropped in a pose library for spikes, receives, and hand forms. So layout artists didn't remake volleyball poses from scratch every single time. They also scripted auto rotation from the coat's rotation charts, temp nameplates that faces the active camera, and handy eye level exporters that paste straight into After Effects, so the comp team keeps the camera horizon consistent. This resulted in less grunt work and more time for shot decisions and overall quality in drawing. Haikyuu planned this whole match in 3D first, then drew the emotion in 2D. One Punch Man Season 3 can do the same for the Monster Association arc. Plan the chaos in 3D, perform the drama in 2D. They could build the labyrinth of the Monster Association and the city chunks in 3D layouts. Model the Monster Association HQ corridors, caverns, and areas, plus key City Z blocks. Treat them like real sets, real lenses. Lock in camera paths, entrance, exits, and elevation changes first, then start drawing. Let's take a look at 2 early fights and see how well this workflow might work. Flashy Flash versus the ninjas. Plan in 3D block the tunnels, corridors, and vanish/entry points, where these 3 characters enter and leave from. These movements can be tracked to give us those after images. Path each ninja's line through the maze that is this destruction. This will help stop the blurry problems. Every teleport reads as intentional. Keep viewers knowing who's where as the chase weaves through the hideout. And this is so easily done because this fight takes part in one area. Sure, that area gets destroyed, but that's what the 3D rendering is for. The next fight would be the Child Emperor and Pheonix Man. Once again, build the vertical shaft. See, that fight takes part in so many different rooms that break into another room, then break into another room, and then fall down to the depths of the Monster Association. Each break, each area can be staged and pre-vised in 3D so that it is so clear that we can see a strong and linear path through the fight. It also lets you pre-visualize the mech. It's going to be a bit of an issue, right? Because the mechs change as the fight continues. So it lets you know exactly how big it's going to be so that you know how to plan the shots. Like how big a hole the mech would make in this wall. Who knows? Also, the parts that fall off the mech are easily tracked because you just go, oh, by the way, this part is off now. We can literally take this part off the mech and leave it on the ground here where it lands so that if it is somehow in frame, the artists can draw it. This is going to help with every element of movement. The mech's stride length, jump arcs, and as I said, the smash through the walls. They can time Pheonix Man's flight lines and the insane level of speed movement seen in this fight. It helps with every single element of drawing. It gives you character poses and clear guidelines for where each body part would go. If Dragon Ball Super previs their shots, Vegeta would never have that weird ass hand. This can make the workflow so much easier from a production standpoint. JC Staff can pull this off with the added guidance of Shinpei Nagai. It could have the insane impact and overall quality that we all desire from this season 3. I mentioned earlier that Nagai was the director for season 3. He hid his identity until very recently when he introduced on Twitter. He then goes on to explain the unusual secrecy in his words. He was relatively unknown. Without a roster of credits as an animator, he was worried that revealing his name too early would give a bad first impression for the show. So he personally asked to keep it under wraps. And now, on the eve of the release, he apologizes for that choice. This message wasn't done for status or something like clout. It seems to come across, to me at least, as damage control, but delivered with humility and just being genuine. Obviously, the secrecy breeds skepticism. Part of this simple resume I mentioned earlier, some of Nagai's best directional credits are short rom-coms and ecchi products, not big action-driven shonen. And when you put that next to the gold standard that is Madhouse Season 1 and the mixed and hollow reception of Season 2 by JC Staff, anxiety spikes when JC Staff are taking Season 3 again, and we get this teaser, a staticky PowerPoint mess. The secrecy didn't help. Even with his explanation, hiding a credit until a month out reads to too many as lack in confidence, weakness. That's the climate he's walking into. Shinpei Nagai has been the front-facing heart of this anime so far. The guy single-handedly is pulling One Punch Man's name out of the mud when the promo cycle felt silent. He's the one who stood up and showed a spine. He stepped up publicly, answering questions, tempered expectations, and he remained composed in front of all this hate and speculation surrounding him, the anime itself, and its production. Anime is a team sport. Composition, color, AD, the whole pipeline. But leadership sets tone, and Nagai's tone has been set clear. Humility and grind. Because of the terrible publication of this anime, he has felt forced into 100 jobs instead of being just the director. On Twitter, he was everywhere, fielding questions, acknowledging limitations, and citing at some points that he couldn't answer certain questions due to NDAs. That openness matters, and I really appreciate it as an individual. It built so much trust and hype within the fandom. From where I'm sitting, getting multiple direct replies on my tiny Twitter account told me everything I needed to know about this guy and his priorities. He wants to keep us, the fan base, informed. He wants to steady the ship that is the public perception of the show he's making, citing that he wants to let his work speak for itself. Now, this is a course correction for sure. Season 2 left a bad taste in people's mouth, and Nagai met that unrelenting storm, not with defensiveness, but with receipts. And later we got the second and revised teaser for season 3, and it had everything we asked to be fixed. This was a promise that they would prioritize readability, mood, and bring us something truly special. He never claimed that they could copy season 2 punch to punch. He literally said that he can't live up to that. Instead, he reframed the goal, making choices that respect the scenes they're in, keep fights legible and cinematic, and he's honest with those restraints. And because the fanbase has been left with nothing because of the publication, not because of JC Staff, I cannot be more clear on that. JC Staff probably working above and beyond, right? It's the publication, Shueisha, that need to get their head on straight, because this man alone and the input he has had is doing more hype than anything they've done in the past 5 years. And yes, he's taking all the heat for this. He knows the publication is trying to protect him in ways. He said so publicly, and he knows that these gaps between the promo is going to be filled with frustration, and yet he's in there, in the trench. He's still there, answering, absorbing, redirecting, putting us at ease. He's not just filling the role of PR. He's building tone before the anime even comes out. You can see the fan base thaw in real time. Replies turning into support, people lifting him up so he can better perform as a director. It's a rare case of frontward facing leadership that I honestly didn't really realize could actually be an option for a director. So JC staff and Shinpai Nagai have my utmost respect when it comes to whatever they publish. And will that final product fall short in places? Probably. The real test is like action cuts and how those 2D to 3D pipelines we talked about earlier will perform under the pressure. But because Nagai showed up, because he talked to us and listened to us and adjusted where he could with that feedback, hope isn't copium in this case. It's earned. That's the difference between being a deluded fan base and actually just having trust in someone. Thank you, Shinpai Nagai. You already know how much I appreciate what you've done so far, but hell, just keep it up. If you strip away all that noise, all that hate, his pitch is straightforward. He loves One Punch Man. He even singled out a theme from One Punch Man about choosing to be a hero who isn't praised, saying he saw himself in it. He's asking people not to judge his work until it's on screen. And he's framing the season's look around clarity first. Lock in the geometry, the lenses, the 3D, and let the 2D line work carry the faces, timing, punchlines, emotion, and comedy. If this approach can maintain balance, as all things should do, but then we're going to be left with something, honestly, really special. We'll see the results starting October 5th, or maybe 14th, because the first episode's supposed to be recap. About the redraws. Love them or hate them, they're not apathy. I love using that word. Then Murata's being a perfectionist. He has a documented history of reworking big stretches, including Gaara era material. He does this to improve clarity and tone, or staging, and that tracks with interviews about how he and One go back and forth, even scrapping pages to protect characters' intent. An example was when they decided to keep Boro more dignified than he was in the webcomic. In short, the manga is not going to stop because of Murata, but losing interest is probably where One Punch Man is going to fall. If anything, it could slow down long term. It's likely that it wouldn't be Murata, but it would be One's webcomic pace, because that's the well the remake of the manga ultimately drinks from. Historically, the webcomic has had long gaps. It had years of pause before 2019. And even in recent years, that's normal for One, because he's been juggling projects that he works on during the year. And he works on One Punch Man when he has the time. But for 2025, it's alive and kicking. We've had 3 webcomic chapters in March, May, and July, and that's a healthy output for like a manga or webcomic. So to take that One never updates a webcomic is also a misconception. But why am I spotlighting One here now? Why do I have One under the microscope? Well, because you gotta keep in mind, Murata approached One to redraw the story in the first place. The remake exists to upscale the source material, not to outrun it. When the webcomic slows or changes its direction, the manga either has to wait or redraws to realign to the story. That's how this partnership was set up from day one. And you know, I really hope that there is a reinvigoration of One Punch Man when season 3 comes out. Hopefully it brings One to new heights in terms of the manga, giving Murata the steam he needs to continue the manga as fast as he possibly can. All of this is obviously projection. We're talking about the future here. We're talking about chapters that don't exist yet. But it's not unfounded or, unreasonable to speculate something like this. Bottom line, for right now and for the foreseeable future, One Punch Man isn't over. It's just paced. The webcomic is the foundation. The manga sits on that foundation, with Murata's perfectionism, sometimes to a fault, but often and more consistently to our benefit. If there's ever a collapse, it would start where the source has dried up. Not because of Murata stopped caring, or anime season 3 failing. So until One finishes the story naturally, or simply loses interest, expect chapters in bursts. And if season 3 thrives, that's only gonna help us get more One Punch Man.